Hospitality Internship Process by me, Charmaine Charles. Now, the purpose of this program was ideally to give you an insight into the hospitality industry. By doing this, you was given 2 hours a week for a semester, which was designed around giving you basic skills. So it would help you develop your CV so you looked both desirable on paper, but you also did things like mock interviews, so you was also desirable in person once you made it past the initial stage. Once you do manage to get past your initial stage of CVs and interviews, and you actually do manage to find your internship, you were then given 210 hours, which you would use to focus more on what you wanted to do within the hospitality industry. So me personally, I only was looking at restaurants. My end goal is to open a restaurant. So I didn't feel the need for me to work in a hotel because I don't want to learn anything to do with hoteliering. I wanted to learn restaurateuring. So I made sure that I directed my internship solely on restaurants, which then gave me maximum options in what avenue within a restaurant I wanted to take on. Using your 210 hours wisely, you then get to learn all aspects of your chosen field, i.e., for me, restaurants, so that you could understand what was going on from both the bottom all the way up to the management levels. You're also given a few structured lectures where you have guest speakers come in who are actually from the industry. You also had some advisors who were from things like job search who actually gave you another insight into how to, for example, structure a CV or to perform an interview. Now, the opportunities of this program. So obviously you get to work within the industry, which is the main goal, but you direct your work experience within your chosen field. As I said beforehand, I didn't feel any need for me to work any other avenue within hospitality other than restaurants, as my end goal is never to work within any other aspect other than within a restaurant. I want to own my own restaurant. So I needed to understand how I was going to develop the little knowledge that I had, as well as the skills that I already had, and make sure that I can actually make them flourish to benefit me in the future. Through working within the industry and working within your chosen field, you can then learn to build up contacts. So for me, I used my opportunities within the restaurant when I was serving customers. If they worked within the field, I made sure I made a connection with them. I made sure that they were aware of who I was, what it is that I wanted to do. If they were willing to give me their contact details, I was happy to take it. If they were willing to give me advice, which a lot of people did, I've made notes of those. So I know when I do open my own restaurant, I will have as much knowledge as possible to help me get through it. Now, also another opportunity within this program, if you are unemployed, you can actually find yourself a permanent position. For myself, I wasn't working. So I was given the advice by one of my colleagues not to look just for an internship, but to actually look for a job. And while having the interview, ask them, would they be willing to let me do my internship with them? Which I thought was great advice, because from that, I did actually secure a permanent position. Just unfortunate for myself, due to certain circumstances, I was unable to keep that position and I had to resign. But like I said, I did make a lot of contacts through the management levels as well. And even though I didn't stay there very long, I made good chemistry with them. So they're all willing to help me in my future goals, which I think is most definitely something that anybody taking on this program needs to understand, that it's not necessarily a case of just that you're going to just go work 210 hours and then leave. You really do need to utilize your time while you're there to make sure that you are making the right connections that can actually help you after you've graduated. Now, the challenges of this program, with anything you have pros and cons. With this program in particular, for us, it was ran at the same time as doing PPD2, and a lot of the information In fact, 99% of the information was duplicated. So we then didn't find it very engaging, and a lot of people didn't turn up to the lectures because we didn't feel the need to do the same lecture twice in 1 week. And it wasn't delivered very well the first time, and it definitely wasn't delivered very well the second time. So we didn't take part. Because there was so much focus on your CV and your interview skills and collecting that type of knowledge, you weren't then given the time to actually find an internship. So it was very difficult to do the lecture and still have to then go away to find a job, as well as taking on all your other responsibilities within your actual degree. Another challenge, which I found very, very challenging myself, was the work study family balance. Now, with this, it is important that you do understand it and you get it right, because if you're doing too much of one, something else is going to suffer. And you don't necessarily want to sacrifice any of them because they're all important to you. So you have to, when you do take on your internship, you need to make sure that you've researched the company enough to know that you can actually manage working there, and remembering you still have to do your assignments. So you need to make sure that your work is not taking over the time that you need to study. And if you do have a young family like myself, you also need to make sure that the hours that you do agree to do are actually going to be suitable for your family life. Because if you do find yourself having to then rely on a lot of other people to help you with your family, it then starts getting very difficult. And like with myself, I then had to leave a job which I had managed to secure as a permanent position, just because I didn't have the right balance. Again, another challenge being the semesters. You've got 3 instead of 2. So ordinarily you're used to finishing in April. We are now finishing in July. This can be challenging if you are somebody that wants to, if you come from abroad and you want to go home abroad, or if you want to work during the summer, it does get a bit more difficult knowing that you have to work until July. You don't get any assistance in finding your internship. You literally have to do it by yourself. And if you're not somebody who's very confident or really knows how to find a job, that can be difficult. And again, that was a challenge for myself, which I've found over years. I've had so many people look over my CV and told me my CV is absolutely perfect. There's nothing wrong with it, but I cannot secure an interview. And that's where my challenges came in. The university themselves are very limited into the contacts that they have in regards to employers who are actually available to take on interns. Especially within the restauranteering business, the only contact that I've seemed to come across myself is Baxter Story. And personally, I don't feel that Baxter Story is a great place to work. They're not very forthcoming. My experience with them when trying to work with them beforehand has not been very encouraging. So it's not an avenue that I wanted to take on. So I struggled trying to find my internship. Now, there are changes coming into this program for the next year, for the 2019 to 2020 year, which I think is good. So you'll be given 2 semesters instead of the 3. Now, this then takes away some of the pressures that you had of semester 1, because in semester 1, you have a lot of group work, which is very, very hard to deal with all of those group works, as well as take on these lessons, which for us, like I say, we didn't find them very engaging and we didn't find them very useful. And again, because they weren't useful was due to the duplication of the modules. So having 2 semesters and it's not running at the same time as PPD will actually benefit you a lot better. Another change I've been told that's happening is the introduction of IT labs, which is absolutely marvelous, because that then allows you for doing your internship, like searching for an employer with assistance. It also makes the lessons more interactive, which needs to happen if you're going to be engaged and if you're going to learn anything. Now, my professional growth, as I've mentioned beforehand, I made a lot of industry contacts. This was so imperative for me, and I'm just glad of the catalogue of numbers that I've managed to store. I have a better understanding of the restauranteering business, industry even, solely because I don't find that the actual degree in itself focuses enough on restauranteering. I know a lot more about hoteleering but not restauranteering, and I find that very disheartening, and I do feel, for me personally, that my degree is actually wasted because I'm not actually getting any knowledge that I need. I've also managed to pick up terminology which I wasn't aware of beforehand. I'd never even heard of the word or words a la carte menu. I'd never heard of that before. So picking up little things like that, I feel very, very beneficial to myself. Now, in conclusion, I would say that this program, it really does have the potential to be great. It just needs to be structured a bit better. We had a bad experience with a member of the teaching team who wasn't very good. I do believe this person has been removed, and the next coming year, you'll actually have a better structured lecturer who knows a lot more information and will be better off at teaching you. Again, because of the topics being duplicated, you're being taught the same things but in different ways. So it needs to be uniform. It needs to be so that you can, no matter who you speak to within the university, you're going to get the same information on how your CV should look or what is good interview skills. Using the model of CAR is a model, but then when you've got certain other people trying to advise you on certain things, it doesn't make sense. So there was a lecturer who advised that your CV should only be 1 page long, and he was telling this to school leavers. Now, for myself being a mature student, I can understand that it's impossible to have a CV for 1 page long once you've actually done all your GCSEs and you've secured a few jobs behind you. You would never have a CV 1 page long. So those type of things, it needs to be uniform. I believe it needs to be uniform and more structured so that you're giving the same information and you're going to give valid information to students across the board, regardless as to what age they are. But also to structure it in so that way that you are giving relevant information to relevant age groups. I was one of the eldest in my class and I was old enough to be the mother of the youngest in the class. The same information that they need is not going to be the same information that I need. And okay, cool, I understand that you don't want to have two separate lesson plans, but also take into consideration that everybody is not within the same age group. So there's some things that are just not relevant to others. That has been my presentation. I hope that it's been useful and it's been knowledgeable, and I hope that you enjoy the module next year. My name's been Charmaine Charles. I thank you for listening to me, and one day I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.